We're going to begin our 1990 GT mock-up review. We're going to review the processes of the assembly up to the point of the trim. Ken Melwitz will be reviewing that process for us and directing through the mock-up review the build of the car.
Today we have drivable chassis coming from the chassis department, and in 1990 we will have the magic plates on, we will have the wheel liners on, the tires, the airbox, the new airbox. It will come into the trim department and it will be placed on the line. The first operations on the line, we will start fixturing hinges, tightening them up. As it proceeds down the line, we will load the rear and front impact beams, tighten those up. We put some seals on in the half moon area in the trunk to close out a section of the trunk that is actually covered up by the quarter. As it proceeds on down the line, we get the roof seals, other seals, the back window, and then we get to the area where we load the motor compartment cover.
One of the new features for 1990 is the fuel filler interface to the what we're calling the magic plate. Previously, the fuel filler had been loose and held in place by a stud to the body. This is a change for the plant at this point in time. There's a new filler for the base and a new filler for the GT.
Magic plates attached to the mill and drill blocks, and then the plastic parts that are assembled in trim are attached to the magic plate. There's a great concern in the trim department that this part has to be held to close tolerances. The next item we're going to address is the rear impact beam and also the rear fascia. And with us is the release engineer, Zen Pribula.
The flanges on the rails are being reinforced for 1990. The structure engineer, John Frickel, is releasing a metal reinforcement that will be welded to the flanges here, and then a new part, a W bracket, which will be welded to a new beam, which is a 10-degree sweep GM10 beam with a different length. Will be welded to the W bracket, and that will be attached to the flanges on the rail as is currently done. The energy absorber is supplied by Fisher Guide as well as the rear fascia. The energy absorber will be bolted to the beam at an outside source near the plant, and that will be shipped in as an assembly. And then that assembly will be attached to the flanges.
As part of the 1990, provisions for towing have been removed from the...
Not the rear.
Not the rear.
A part that is missing that will be added as this mock-up is updated is toe pads. We'll have a toe pad underneath the beam here and a block here and a strap across. Pull the two together, which also will help support the lower fascia when we attach to it.
The rear fascia is sub-assembled in the plant, and it will be sub-assembled with J-nuts, license light, and we feel reflectors. It's yet to be determined whether we're going to do those online or make it part of a sub-assembly. Yes, the modification.
The fascia we estimate will weigh roughly 21 pounds. Current production is around 16 pounds, 17 pounds. So it is a larger fascia. It's probably the largest fascia that will be produced at that time. We're just going to have the fascia loaded, probably two operators as we're doing here. Push nails across the top, attaching it to the lamp support housing bracket. And the fascia is going to be loaded first, as is the case with the base, and then a quarter panel with the afterwards.
There were two concerns we found during the mock-up, and I believe those have been changed in the design. One was interference in this area here with the magic plate and the fascia.
Yeah, we put a cutout here into the pocket to relieve that interference, and we had some interference in this corner here with the lamp pocket, and we removed some of the lamp pocket to eliminate that interference.
Are the fasteners carryovers?
Fasteners are carryover to the fishnail type, which are common.
Also underneath? How many are underneath? 5?
I think there, yeah, 5.
Is there any emblem identification in the back?
No, there might be a Pontiac letter, but it's, no, there's not. Identification is in the tail lamps, as is on the GT today. The fascia doesn't have any identification.
Okay, on the GT today, we have a GT emblem over in the right-hand corner of the fascia. That has been eliminated?
As far as I know. Here we have the reflex lamps. As Ken mentioned earlier, we have yet to decide if they will be pre-assembled or assembled to the car now. We'll put them on the car now for this mock-up.
How are they held on?
Fisher Guide, designed and supplied by Fisher Guide. We have 2 metal clips that snap in the back behind the protrusion, locking behind the flanges here on the fascia.
There's a little push on from the rear.
Yeah. Supposed to be holes instead of slots on.
Are those slotted?
Slots.
Yeah, open slots.
Yeah, just like you see.
We have with us now Howard Danzer, who is the release engineer for the Magic Plates and the taillight housing. He'll explain some of the features of the Magic Plate, and then we'll load the housing to the car.
Okay, basically what we have here is the Magic Plate that will be supplied by Rockwell Corporation. It'll be received with the gaskets in place. There's a seal that lays up against the quarter outer. There's a gasket that seals to the space frame. And there's also a closeout gasket in the front. All of those parts will be supplied as part of the assembly. It mounts to the space frame on the mill and drill pads, which takes up the body variation, and the quarter panels will mount to it.
Is there a seal?
There is a gasket.
This supports the
It's just a closeout seal for the quarter. That's all.
As of right now, the clips are released for the plan to install.
That's correct.
We were talking briefly before you got here that is there a way to incorporate the half moon closeout into the Magic Plate to try to save on part proliferation in the plant? Or do we have too much variation in our mill and drill pads to do that?
It's designed as a separate piece, to incorporate it in the Magic Plate. You're basically starting all over again.
Okay, now I'd like to get the taillight housing and load it to the car.
Howard's going to take a minute to review the lock interface to the tail lamp housing and the build.
What you have here is you have tail lamp pockets in the SMC part. It builds net to the quarter, to the Magic Plates. It builds net to the lamp support. And it also carries a lock support, which builds net to the tail lamp. There is no adjustment in any of the pieces that you see.
Also not shown on this mock-up is the electrical harness that will be installed in chassis, routed down the right side of the car, and then placed into the trunk compartment. And then after we assemble the tail lamp housing, we'll have to take the harness out, route it, get the tail light wires out where they belong, and this will be done in trim. The next item we're going to address is the motor cover compartment lid, and it's also Howard's part. Howard explained some of the features of it as they're loading it to the car. Gentlemen?
Okay, the assembly you see will come in completely finished from Bud Company. Be totally painted. All the seals will be on the parts, and basically it's just dropped down to the 3 mil drill pads on the roof. And
There are some unique features of the quarter as far as the acrylic and the painting. Painting's done at Bud then?
The acrylic roof comes in from Lexamar, just the way you see it. It's totally decorated, and it's installed to the motor compartment cover at Bud Company. It's a completely finished assembly. The grill area, the motor compartment outer will be totally painted at Bud in 30 gloss level black, and it will be a completely finished assembly as the plant receives it.
Does it come in with the hinge assembly?
Yes, the hinge is on it. It's ready to drop on the vehicle.
Wes Zidell mentioned on the base mock-up that there would be a locator, possible locator on the right-hand side.
There's what the intent is at this time is there's going to be two wedge plate effects to center the motor compartment to the magic plates. They'll be located on the bottom side of the surface as far rearward as we can get it.
As we go through the mock-up today, there are only two carryover parts, not carryover. They are unique, similar to the base and GTs. That is the roof and the hood. The rest of the parts are unique to the car line, either GT or base.
One of the concerns we had during the mock-up, Ken had pointed out to us, was that there seems to be an interference between the reinforcing flange and the sheet metal on the upper. I know that John Frickel has made a relief for the lower here, but I'm not aware of him having changed the upper.
Are you talking relative to the motor compartment or relative to the
Between the
quarter applicator?
reinforcement, Ken?
Yeah, right along this where there's two seams well.
Okay, that has been modified by John Frickel, and there's supposedly 9 millimeters clearance between the roof assembly and the flange.
Okay, the mock-up is just not representative in that area then, and there's adequate clearance.
By design, there's clearance.
Great.
As I mentioned previously, the roof panel, which we are going to load next, is one of the carryover parts, and it is common on base and GT. It also bolts through the hinges of the motor compartment cover as the T-nuts go down through, and then it is secured along with the roof. The roof will be loaded now. The roof will come in high gloss black, will match the black upper, the quarter surround motor cover, and you have your acrylic here also. The roof, both roof panels will be black, the rest of the car will be body color. The next item we're going to address are the supports, the gas strut supports, and the latch for the motor cover. And Rick Mazer is here to address that.
Thank you. Basically, we got here in the natural position. These gas struts will be like this, and simply snap them on. Simply snap them on. That's both sides. We'll have this on probably the right-hand side. We'll have a mechanical device that will, when you want to let the hood down, you just snap the little latch and it goes down. This will be an under counterbalance system due to the geometry of the hinge and the support and the center of gravity. So we had to go with the under counterbalance system. But these just snap on. And that's that. There'll be a latch here that will be put on at the assembly plant. But I would like to emphasize that the cable assembly will come as part of the motor compartment assembly shipped from Bud. So at some point down the line, it does have to be tied back in here to the handle, which is on today's cars, the fuel filler release handle.
Yes, there is a manual release for the motor compartment. Also, the latch assembly is yet to be determined where we are going to do that in the plant, whether the paint shop is going to do it and then ship it down as an assembly to us, or the trim shop is going to do it downstairs.
We did have something come up during the mock-up, and design has since been changed. I believe a plate's been added, a reinforcing plate.
Yeah, well, what we did is, rather than have the bracket will have a flange turned over, a leg turned over that will tie into the magic plate as well as the mill and drill pad at this location, which gives this bracket more reinforcement, more strength.
During the mock-up, we did shear a pin, but I believe the reason it sheared on the mock-up was because of a misalignment of our mock-up, but in production,
Yeah, these struts can take about 13 degrees off balance.
that was just the hinge pin on the quarter.
Oh, okay, yeah, those weren't hardened. It's really, can't really, take anything out to the...
Yeah, we credited its misalignment in our mock-up, but I just wanted to break that.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah. Something you have to watch for. And this is, I think that is just an SAE 1008, 1010. It's just straight steel. It's not hardened or anything.
Plant had a concern about sealing that was undefined between the motor cover and the roof. And right now, to keep water intrusion and dust out of that, the sealing has not been determined yet of what type we're going to use. Also, the plant had a concern about removal of the motor cover. Engineering said that we can take the hinge loose from the inside. There are 3 bolts. You remove those bolts and the motor cover will lift off without touching the roof. The concern was that we might have to take the roof off to change a damaged motor cover compartment. There is a plant concern about the reflectors to the fascia. With the existing retainers that are released, it is difficult to hold any type of tolerance if there is one required for these reflectors. There's also looks like there might be a problem with a gapping between the fascia and the reflector. These should be listed as concerns in this mock-up.
For the 1990 GT, the fuel filler pocket assembly will be made up of 3 components. We have a housing pocket, which will be pre-assembled, which will be loaded to the over the fuel filler pipe. We also have a separate hinge pocket and the door. So the assembly sequence will be, first off, the pocket will be loaded over the fuel filler neck. Then the quarter panel will be loaded to the vehicle, and then we will load the hinge pocket, which holds the door, into the housing pocket and secure it with 3 screws. The reason for the 3 pieces is for easy service of the door without having to remove the quarter panel or the housing pocket. What we've done for 1990 on base as well as GT to help improve cosmetics as far as the wheel liner to a quarter panel or fenders is concerned, we've taken the wheel liner and we have it tucking above the quarter panel and fender in this area in the top. Probably the center third of the wheel liner will be tucked on top of the quarter and fender for both cars to prevent any unsightly condition between wheel liner and quarter panel. Then we'll have a flip that will flip back over to this inside surface here and will be attached with screws as is currently done today. There is also a grill, which is, there will be an opening in the quarter panel, and the grill will be very similar to today's current production, 2 tabs and 2 screws. Slip the tabs in and attach a couple screws to the quarter panel to hold the grill in place. Now when you load the quarter, you can only, first off, you have to make sure you get this attachment here. So you load it in this direction from behind, and then you snap it over the fuel filler neck, and then you can make your attachments once you've got the tab located into the fascia. We're using common screws all along the top, 6 mil and then 6 mil screws in the side mark area.
There's a few items that were not covered that I'd like to take the opportunity to go through right now. On the quarter, this hole right here is your net locator. It also has the deck lid hinge on it. So the plant will have to sub-assemble the deck lid hinge to the quarter and drive this screw first, saying this is a net locator. For the sake of the mock-up, We have left the hinges on the deck lid right now, and they are just attached there loosely, and it fall apart if we took it off. Also on the rear fascia, they've gone to flanging rather than bosses, and that is for quality problems in this area, so you don't have pitting. And your gas door is no longer a remote release. There's a finger pull that is not representative right here now. The release cable that was the gas door release is now the motor compartment release. It is not mocked up here, and the plant has a mild concern that they would like to see that mocked up to see if we have a pinching problem here on the flange and that it is feasible to work. The next item in the assembly process is the quarter window, and here with the quarter window is release engineer Tom Jaglowski.
The quarter window applique will come as an assembly with sealing strips mounted on the inside. We will preload 2 clips into this area here of the quarter panel. The applique has a feature which locates it fore and aft. There's a net locating notch cut into this flange. The tab here will locate this. What you'll start out doing is placing it under the roof as we do today. This top portion here is exactly like it is today. And the applique fits into the quarter. And then we have that lower flange will snap into the 2 preloaded clips. Then we have a plastic push-on fastener that we just push in through a pre-drilled hole in the sheet metal. Pre-assembled to this applique before it's put on the car, there will be at least 2 seals, possibly 3, to keep water and fumes out of here in this area.
When we build the prototype cars, seeing there is no mechanical fastener in the front, it will have to be looked at closely that this quarter window does not start vibrating or get noise in there. There might have to be an additional butyl or sealing or maybe even fasteners on that if we run into that problem with prototypes. There was also a concern brought up with the relationship between the quarter and the sail panel. How are we going to control that so we have an even line? And Wes is going to speak to that.
The latest or the thinking is that this hole will be punched in the body in the detailed parts. We will have to then have a large enough hole and a big enough button to cover that, to take care of all the tolerances. You were afraid of what? The front line also? Front line will definitely be controlled by the clips and the interaction of this quarter panel, of the quarter applique and the quarter panel. So if there is a big gross mismatch between the body and what the mill and drill blocks, you will be reading some of that here. That is not addressed. This is a entity that is all basically interrelated to the mill and drill blocks. Hopefully there isn't going to be that much, because you still have to, the door opening and the glass and everything is kind of interrelated. You can't have all that go to hell. So therefore all this should pretty much be in the same relationship.
Okay, thanks, Wes.
New features for 1990 is the sail panel air intake. Air in the current production car is brought in through the grill, just below the belt, and in through a baffling system and into the air cleaner. For 1990, the air will be brought in between the sail panel applique and the roof through a duct that merges the right intake with the left, and then seal and into the remote air cleaner. As I stated earlier, the air is brought in through the sail panel intakes, through a duct system in the motor compartment inner. There is a seal being provided by AC on the remote air cleaner that will mate with the motor compartment inner, and that provides the fresh air for the engine. We expect it to be quite an improvement in terms of dust and water.
Next step in the assembly process is the front fenders. Terry Lynn will cover the buildup of a bracket and other fasteners, and then we'll load it to the car.
The GT front fender is very similar to the base front fender for 90, which again is similar to the current production car. The unique features about it is, as in the rear, we're tucking underneath the wheel liner, so we actually have this flap above the fender. That's a clearance situation. The fender itself is loaded on the vehicle, and we tie in, we have a sandwich tie, which I'll show you when we get the fender up, where we tie in the wheel liner and the fender, and we have a tie-in here through this bracket here. This is a new bracket. Oh, careful with the part. Okay. It's a reinforcement bracket similar to what we have today, only it's a much larger bracket that'll actually go up and indirectly tie up in the fascia attaching area. That'll take some of the load off the fender itself when we attach the fascia. And it indirectly ties into the mill and drill block, which should help locate the fender. Best way right now is sit the fender on the car, and I can point out the differences. Down in this corner here, we have an attachment, wheel liner, the fender, the rocker panel, same as we do today. We have our fasteners up around the run here, same as we do today. The fender attachment is right here, if you can see it. It's where that reinforcement walks around through the inside and is sandwiched in an attachment here. The support of the fender, the number of fasteners, and the general assembly of it, there's nothing really new about it except we have to flip it on a wheel liner, and we have plenty of clearance for that.
Next part of the car that we're going to address is the front fascia. Prior to that, the impact beam, the absorber are installed and fixtured in A group. They come down the assembly line, the park lights are installed in them, and if it requires fog lights, they are also assembled in the beam. They attach directly to the beam. It is not on the mock-up at this time, and we need that mocked up so we can evaluate that condition. Then we get to the front fascia load, and Terry Lynn will address the sub-assembly and also some unique features about the front fascia.
This is the fascia as we know it today. And the pre-build before it goes online is very similar to the day. We have this piece, and this piece, the air dam retainer, and these reinforcements are all carryover parts and will be put on the fascia the same way. The separate cross piece here is new. That's the black one, the lower one, and it will be a particular part for the GT. The upper piece, the silver one here, is also a new part, but it will be a common part between the base and the GT.
Where there's one now, there are two.
We don't have anything there now.
Yeah, but we have the upper reinforcement now.
We have this now.
Yes.
There will be two because of the difference between the cars.
And then you're also adding a step marathon?
Yes. Currently in the plant for our base cars, we're adding in the little Canadian Z49 released reinforcements, which considerably help the quality of the build and the stability of the fascia in this whole fender area in here. With that under consideration, we're putting a full strip across here, which should stabilize the whole front fascia, particularly on this car, because the fascia is about a good 6 or 7 pounds heavier than the base fascia, so you can have that extra weight pulling it. Again, these parts here and this part have a net locating hole up here, so once you put them on, they'll be located to the fascia. The fascia is put on the car same way that we do today. Nothing fancy about that. One other part that we'll have in our build-up area is, it's shown here as part of the fascia, with this lower area down here, it looks like an airfoil, you'll see it when we turn the fascia around, is a separate part, and it will be put on at the same time these parts are put on, along of course with the emblem in the front, which is a similar construction and a similar attachment of today's emblem. We have the pin going through with the nut behind it. Let's go ahead and put this on the card, and I can cover this area up in here in the attachments.
One thing I want to mention before we do that, this reinforcement is fixtured in a build-up fixture prior to loading to the car. That sets the relationship to the mill and drill blocks. Okay, we can load.
You also control the contour of the fascia? Is that what
Yes.
you're saying? It's a vacuum, so you suck
The
the fascia
vacuum,
all
we
the way
suck
up?
the fascia down in so that we have the contour to the front end.
Right.
Now we have the fascia attached to the vehicle. As I mentioned before, we're tied in solid here, standard ties through here. This whole area in here is a very busy area. We have one fastener right here that sandwiches the wheel liner, the fascia, and the fender together. The rest of the fasteners are just wheel liner and fascia as we know it today. Right in here, we have a locating tab that's coordinated between the fascia and the fender, which will help control this gap. It controls it in an up and down fashion and then an in and out type fashion. It's a little snap fit type thing. We're also tying into the fender prior to the lamp installation through the lamp opening where it ties the fascia and fender together, locking into the fender reinforcement. And the fender reinforcement walks around up in here. Once this is all done in here, down the line, you slide your lamp in. We have one fastener going into the lamp. Again, the lamp is not part of a sandwich deal. It will float with the fascia, so we don't have to worry about reinforcements lining up. All we do is put the lamp on the fascia. And I'll do away with some of our current problems. Another item is the sandwich up here between the fender reinforcement, this reinforcement, and the mill and drill blocks. This will indirectly help locate the fender in this area in an inboard-outboard position. Also not shown on the mock-up, the hood bumper will also be part of this reinforcement, and that's similar to they just screws into the metal bracket. The emblem is here. Here's the front section of that wing that I had mentioned before. That's part of the sub-assembly before the fascia gets to the line. The impact beam will be coming down the line just like it does today, pre-built with the EA unit, the lamp mounting bracket. And that's really it. We're not towing this car from the front, so we don't have the tow pads in the way down in that area. The park and signal lamps screw straight in, just like we do today. You reach in, pull out the wire, run them in, run your screws in. And that again it can be done prior to the fascia installation. Probably would be easier to do that, but there's room to get them out for service. Are there any questions on the installation of the front fascia, the fender, or the wheel liner, and how they join together as one large system?
Locating tabs that are on this piece and this piece,
Yeah.
are they dimensioned to the outside surface?
They're tied in actually down here, and our geometric tolerancing guys are sure as they'll work as far as controlling that area.
Okay, we need them to the outside surface though.
Right.
So-
We're all tied into the outside.
Okay,
Because
great.
that's a controlling surface where we have to control the gaps and the flush.
Right.
Normal tying and mill and drill pads across the top. Nothing new there. Any other questions? Thank you.
The next item we're going to address today in our assembly sequence is the installation of the door skin. First it is sub-assembled offline, and then it is brought to the line and assembled to the vehicle. With us is Scott Vandenberg. He is the door engineer. He's going to go through the sub-assembly and the installation of the door skin.
It's going to say the handle is sub-assembled to the door skin offline, and we've got the hidden handle being held to the outer skin by a reinforcement. It's being held at 3 points. The farthest forward point is at the lock cylinder, and that's just going to be held in by the spring clip that holds in the lock cylinder. And then as the current production reinforcement is held in today, it's at the 2 of the rear panel attachment holes. Once it's the handle is sub-assembled offline, when the door outer panel is assembled to the structure itself, you're going to have a difference in how the outside handle rod is hooked up. The outside handle rod will be attached to the which is on the outer panel. So the operator will have to come in through the inside of the door through an access hole and adjust the rod and attach it. The lock cylinder rod should be similar to what we have today. It's how it's on the door assembled. Besides that, we have the other changing item for this 1990 will be the mirror gaskets, which do not result in any difference in how the operator attaches them to the car. We've changed hole locations, the T-nut attaching holes for the outer panel. We've reduced the number in the rear to 3 from what's currently there today, which is 4. And at the front, we've kept 3 holes, but we've changed the location. And for 1990, the inner panel is going to be pierced at plant 14. The top T-nut locating hole, we will have notches in the outer belt reinforcement and the hinge pillar reinforcement to clear it when the door structure is assembled.
Plant is also going to pierce 3 holes to set fore and aft up in the corner and also down to the bottom of the door. And in conjunction with that, the forward attachment on the quarter panel is also going to be pierced at the same location. This will give you a direct relationship between your door skin and your quarter panel. As Scott mentioned before, the plant is concerned about this adjustable lock rod because in the plant we will have to do it with the window up. Unlike a conventional assembly plant, all our window and hardware are in the car prior to loading the door skin. This is going to be a very difficult assembly because the operator will actually have to set on the floor pan of the car, reach in through an access hole, adjust it, and snap it in. We requested you, Scott, to see this mocked up with parts that are very similar to what we're going to see in production so we can actually see what we have. And right now it's listed as a strong concern as a plant standpoint.
As far as the mirror is concerned for 1990, right here we're showing the hole. The main thing that's changed has been that the mirror attachment holes on the outer belt reinforcement have been opened up to allow the mirror to float with the outer panel. No longer is the mirror netted to the door structure. It now is netted to the outer panel itself. This was done in an attempt to keep the amount of gasket overlap on the outer panel to a minimum. And it will require a different washer on the fastener that we use to hold the mirror in place, but the installation should be the same as today's. And now that we have the outer panel on the door structure, we'll assemble the mirror.
Maryland Edwards, 7200. Maryland Edwards, 7200.
The next items we're going to talk about are side marker lights and the hood installation. Briefly cover the hardware of the hood installation. The latch, which is pre-assembled in the chassis area, is fixtured and tightened in A group. Also, the front hood hinges are assembled to the space frame, fixtured and tightened. For the sake of the mock-up, the hood hinges will be left on the hood at this time, and we'll just assemble it after Terry gets done with the marker light. Terry?
Front side marker, left and right hand part, tab, take the tab, slip it in the fascia, slip this back in, take 1 screw, and run it in. Very simple. Any questions on the front side marker? It's attached only to the fascia and to nothing else.
Terry, what does that screw run into?
It attaches to a J-nut on the fascia.
Okay, gentlemen, can we have the hood? Terry, you're right.
Too tight.
In the plant process, as I stated before, we will come in through the headlight opening and make the 3 attachments to the hood hinge. It's different than we presently do now we are going in on an angle. They actually attach to a vertical boss, a rib that is in the hood. This is a straight up shot with an air motor, 3 on each side. We make the adjustment of the hood, then we tighten the bolts down.
Structure of the hood is the same as it is on today's car as far as the plant's concerned. Comes in as a bonded assembly with your reinforcement brackets and studs in place. So the handling of the hood as compared to today's car should be exactly the same. The difference comes in is when we put our headlamp mechanism in. What we have for a headlamp mechanism, 3 basic pieces. Your casting S from Fisher guide, your bonded construction inner and outer panel, and your headlamp bezel. They'll be put on the hood, on line. The casting itself is attached loosely to the hood. On the hood itself are milled pads, similar to mill and drill pads, that will align this casting up in relationship to this part in the hood surface, so we don't have to worry about flushness and build in that area. It's a net fit. What we do have to do, though, once this part here is in place, and loosely attached, yeah. Yeah, just enough to hold it up, that's all. That's good. The outside cover is loaded from the outside of hood, and like this, there is a fixture that will be in place, and these attachments here will be drilled at assembly, and that finishes the net concept on the hood. And after that, the headlamp bezel break the bosses off. Yeah, it's simply brought up, put in place. There's a screw here on either side, and there are 2 screws in the front that have to be run. Just a normal setup with that doesn't take any fixturing. The key is the fixturing between the outer panel assembly and the headlamp casting, and the headlamp casting and the hood, which is a net build. That's the critical part about this, and you should have a pretty much pre-aligned, pre-aimed, gap-set, flush-set headlamp system.
Gary, one thing that you brought up earlier was you mentioned Dave to loose assemble it. I assume that was just for the mock-up purposes.
Yeah, we don't want to start breaking things.
It'll be hard assembled when you initially bring it in contact with the inner.
You want to be, yes, you may have to adjust it to center it a little bit once you load your top piece, but you don't want to torque it down tight until you fixture it in.
The original, or on the base mock-up, we used push retainers to hold it on, so that then we could actuate the headlights, bring them up, put the cover on,
and zip it in.
Let them come back down, center it to the opening, and then make your final attachments, secure them down.
Right. The final procedure, this is the plan procedure. Okay. The final procedure is be whatever works most convenient once we get the fixture made and get it in here to handle it. And we hope to have that by prototype build.
Can you assemble the headlight cover with the lamps in the down position?
Yes, but it would probably be a little more difficult. Again, it would depend on the fixturing that we get.
But the fixture locates the can.
The fixture locates...
That should put the door in position.
Yes. The fixture locates the door to the can or the headlamp assembly itself in position in relationship to the surface of the hood and the gaps around the outside that we're holding on the periphery.
How much oversized are the holes? How much do you have to work with in the housing and the bracket?
Really couldn't tell you off the top of my tongue. No one has, looking at the drawing, no one has seen any problem with the type of holes that we have in it because everything is netted together.
There is concern and a little disagreement between the Technology Center and the way the assembly plant is going to try to process the headlights. There has to be a separate meeting after this with the engineers involved to work this all out. As the plant foresees the installation of the quad lamps, we're going to loose install the quad lamp assembly to the hood. We're going to then activate the headlights, bring them up, take the headlight cover, assemble it to the opening, secure it to the headlight, install a fixture over the assembly to center it in the opening, deactivate the headlights, go back to the inside of the hood and make 4 attachments. And then after that is done, then we would run the headlights back up again and put the closeout bezel on. Before we go on, I'd like to cover 2 things that we went by. There are drip rails that go on the roof. They are common between the base and GT. It's the carryover drip rail that we use now. There's one item of concern I'd like to point out is that it seems that the fascia sags here at the corner between the quarter and the fascia. There might be a need for an added attachment in that area to bring it up. The next item that is assembled to the car is the deck lid. For one thing, for mock-up purposes, we have the hinges on the deck lid. That is not the way the assembly plant is going to do it. The net attachment of the quarter to the magic plate is made through the hinge. So the hinge would be installed prior to the deck lid. For the sake of the mock-up, we're going to leave the hinges on the deck lid and assemble them. And we're going to assemble it now. Howard Danzer is going to talk about the features of the deck lid.
The deck lid is a one-piece assembly as received from Bud Company. Your previous design was a 2-piece assembly where the forward portion was an applique, and it would have come in painted black, and the rear portion, which would be the deck lid outer plus the inner panel running all the way forward, was a separate assembly. That design has been revised, and the entire deck lid surface is a one-piece panel. There will be a paint-through of some design in there. The design hasn't been finalized yet. We'll paint people to come up with something that's acceptable to the assembly plant. But the concept is that the deck lid will come in and this portion will be painted black by Bud Company. It will then have to be masked off and the rest of it be painted body color at the assembly plant. After that, the hinges are installed and it's just dropped into place.
Okay, what I'd like to talk about now is the hold open support on the deck lid. This will already, the bracket on the body side will already be there, and Bud will ship the bracket on the lid side already assembled to the car, and you merely just, you know, like we talked about on the motor compartment, just stick it on. Of course, there's no, oh, there it is. Really snaps on. And with respect to the remote release, as we alluded to this morning, the solenoid and switch will already be installed prior to this being assembled inside the tail lamp housing.
There's 2 additional items I'd like to bring up concerning the deck lid and the quarter. There seems to be a existing hole on the mock-up that goes down into the trunk compartment. We're asking engineers to take a look at it to see if that is design intent or we need to close that area out. It's on both sides. Howard also mentioned that all the hinge attachments are net. He asked the plant to look at their process of when they load the quarter, seeing this forward hinge attachment is the net locator for the quarter, to pin that, and it'd make it an easier assembly to first attach the hinge to the deck lid and then make the attachment to the quarter. The next item in the assembly process is the rocker installation. Zen Bragula will cover the rocker installation and the rear side marker installation at this time.
First off, we have a rocker support, which is riveted to the space frame or body side frame. 4 rivets along the top and 4 rivets along the bottom. And the support has 4 areas for attachment that the rocker, lower flange of the rocker will attach to. The rocker panel is a one-piece injection molded TPO material. There are no extensions and no door moldings. What you see here is all we're going to have. Snap-in features will be carryover from current production.
Comes in body color?
Comes in body color, yeah. And then the line up those tabs. Snap in at the top, and then you can rivet along the top and bottom.
Zed, I noticed that the top attachments are a small hole compared to where we put closeouts in at present. Is this
We will have the, I don't know if we're going to have a nameplate in it, but we will have the insert covering up the rivets as we do on today's rocker. That's a carryover feature that's not quite shown here. Next operation would be the side marker lamp, which is supplied by Fisher Guide. And it's a different installation than the other side marker lamps on the car. Per design staff's request, we have 2 screws, and you would just take the socket, plug the wiring socket into the lamp, and then secure the 2 screws into the quarter panel.
The last 2 items we're going to cover on the mock-up are the spoiler and the taillight assemblies. They will be covered by Howard Danzig.
This is the spoiler. It will be supplied by the source totally in body color. It will have studs on the bottom of it. A gasket has to be installed, a paint shut gasket. The studs will drop into holes in the deck lid. The deck lid will have to be opened and the nuts driven on the bottom side for the attachment.
We'll put the spoiler on now. There is an item to mention that is strictly informational for the plant, that when you have both lids open, you cannot close the motor compartment lid with a spoiler on the deck lid. They'll make contact.
This is a mock-up of the tail lamp. The right-hand tail lamp is a corresponding left-hand part. The mock-up isn't totally to design intent, and that's only because we haven't completed the design yet. Basically, what we're going to have is 2 studs on the lamp. This shows 3. But we'll have fingers that are locating fingers to keep the lamp from rocking. They will also gauge the lamp for a net build. The holes in the tail lamp pocket will be oversized. The locating fingers will position the lamp, and the operator has to drive 2 nuts. But you have to reach through the opening for the beverage cooler to drive the outboard and the inboard nuts. The mock-up is also a little bit out of date in that the lamp carries a flange that sits on top of the tail lamp pocket. This is the auxiliary stowage compartment. It'll be an injection molded part, possibly a blow molded part. It will incorporate a drain in the bottom of it. It simply drops into the rear of the car, and the seal is contained in the deck lid. When the lid is closed, the compartment is sealed.
There are no fasteners?
There are no fasteners for the installation.